Hello everyone, this is Tina with Tia's Treasures, and today I have for you 5 cards with the Simon Says July 2022 kit. Usually I try to unbox the kit before I've gotten my cards kind of cut and prepped to the side, but I forgot. So I'm going to do this real quick. This kit comes with Simon Says stamp, clear embossing ink, and watermark, which is kind of fun to use it as watermark once in a while. So we get a full pad of this. We get a full container of ultrafine silver embossing powder. We get our little candy. This one is mango. Yum. We also get a mesh bag. This one's got the pink lining and zipper. This is great for holding like entire sheets of cardstock and your kit to store it away. So I love these. This kit comes with some thin pop-up foam squares. We get a metallic lilac and a metallic silver envelope. We get this really fun embossing folder, which I am going to use. Now this embossing folder, you can get a die, which I have here, that cuts out a heart from the embossing folder. Now this die is separate, but I did get the die, so there's that. And so, yeah, anyhow. So this is a fun folder with all these florals. You don't have to have the die to use it. It still looks fine without it. This is from my stash. Ignore that. We get a lilac piece of paper. We get a rose gold sheet of paper. Like I said, I have dug into this kit already. We also get, while I'm doing cardstock, we get a whole sheet of white. So there's that. We get some pattern paper, which again, I have used a few of these sheets to prep my cards already, but it's pretty neat. It's a gray paper with some lavender and green on it, and it's double-sided. Go through that real quick. Cute little dragonflies. I love this. I actually ended up buying more of this paper. I probably should have bought it earlier or not at all. But I like not having to decide what sheets to use. And that is nice. And there's another sheet with canning jars on it that I do not have in the scrap pile there. I will show you it. I have a little bitty scrap over here. It's got like a shine on it on one side, and the other side is just flat. I have a card that I made, well, I'm going to make using this. And the way I cut, I wish I had an extra sheet to recut. What I cut is going to work, but it's not going to be as perfect as it could have been. You'll see when we get to that card. Anyhow, we also have our little cheat sheet, I guess you could call it. Gives us some inspiration here and everything that came in the kit. We get some gray card bases. I think there's 3 of them. I didn't open it because I did not use them. Yeah, 3 scored note cards, they call these. And last but not least, we get our stamp pad that's got some beautiful florals that you can stamp out. Few butterflies, these beautiful sentiments, and you can buy the dies for the sentiments or the florals or both. They sell them separately, so you either buy the sentiments or you buy the florals dies. There is a bundle to get all 3 together, but there isn't a bundle for just the 2 dies. So if you already have the stamp set, you're going to either need to buy the 2 dies individually or just decide if you want any dies at all. I did buy the dies for the sentiment because I'm thinking these are such beautiful sentiments. I would love to use them again, and I'm more likely to do that if I can cut them out and put them on a card. So there we have it. Now on to the cards. So for this first card, we are taking the sentiment with sympathy, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stamp that out on some vellum that I pulled out of my stash. And we're going to stamp it with the clear embossing ink that was in this month's kit. And we're going to then emboss it with the silver embossing powder that was in this month's kit. I'm going to try to use as many items from this kit as I can, and I do pull in some odds and ends from my stash. So here I am just using the powder tool. I actually remember to use it on all 5 cards. Well, not all 5 because I don't emboss on all 5, but I do remember to use it on all of the cards that I emboss, which is that's like a new high for me. I never remember to do that. So anyhow, I'm pulling some stuff out in the background while I'm doing this voiceover. And I just get that stamped down, and now you're watching me pour the silver embossing powder all over it. So we're going to get this all heat embossed, and I am going to try not to warp it. I do end up warping it though because it's vellum and it's kind of hard not to warp. So in the lower right hand corner there, I've got these little hand tongs, I guess, that I saw on Amy R's channel, and I just had to have because they allow you to grip your cardstock when you're like heat embossing and not burn your fingers. And I'm always burning my fingers. So I figured, why not? So I pulled out this pearlescent, gray pearlescent paper that I've had in my stash for a long time. And I'm using that to frame up this gorgeous pattern paper. Now the pattern paper has all this silver all over it, which I thought would go really good with the silver embossed sentiment. What ends up happening though is because my paper's a bit warped, I pull it off after I tape it down and I put some double-sided adhesive on it, which normally works really well, and in this case it did work well, but when the sentiment ended up so flat against the pattern paper, it made it hard to read. So if I had to do it all over again, I think I might use a white embossing powder so it had a little bit more pop. You have to kind of tilt the card to see that it says with sympathy. It still, I think, turned out nice, but it could have turned out better. So this card, you know, this video should be called like Do As I Say, not As I Do, because I do make a few mistakes here and there, but I point them out to you in the end, and you see where we go with them. So now for our second card, I brought in some more of that pearlescent cardstock. I figured I already had it out, so why not use it? And what I'm going to do is I am going to stamp on the pearlescent cardstock, and I'm going to be using 3 of the florals. Now I end up, I wanted the shorter floral in the center, and so I end up pulling both of these stamps that you see right now, these florals, and I move them way off to the side of this A2 card. Because I really want to fit that small one right in the center, because I want to bring in one of the butterflies, and I want that to be in the kind of in the valley there, I guess you'd call it. Well, you might not call it that, but that's what I'm calling it. And so you can see me just trying to get everything arranged, and I'm going to bring in some orchid ink from the Positively Saturated ink line from Simon Says Stamp, and I think that's going to go really well with the lilac cardstock that came in the kit. So I was originally going to try to heat emboss this lilac ink because I thought it might smear, but it dried a little bit too quickly, and so obviously if it was dry it wasn't going to smear at all. So I did not end up heat embossing that, but I am going to bring in the sentiment thanks and the sub-sentiment for everything. And I do end up heat embossing that. And again, we're using the silver this time. I do end up embossing one of these cards, I believe, with a different color. But the silver is going to work just beautifully on this. Now I've got all A2 cards, and this one I cut down a little bit so we had that lilac frame going around it. I just cut off 1/4 inch, so it's 4 by 5 1/4, and there I'm using all top folding cards just in case you're curious. So anyhow, you see me getting everything prepped here. And I just love the way that the purple ink looks on this pearlescent card. I just think it's really pretty. And there was something I was going to look for while I was doing this voiceover, and my mind just kind of went blank, which is, you know, what happens to me. So we get that all inked up. And even though you didn't see me use my anti-static tool, I did at some point. We get that all poured back in. This video, I was trying to edit it while I had my dog sitting on my lap, and there was a few times that I think, well, probably more than a few times, that I think I probably could have done better. But I had a needy dog and I had a cat meowing, and that's before I did the voiceover, which is why you don't hear any of that. It was kind of one of those nights, but I really want to get this voiceover done, you know, so that's why I am now closed up in my room doing it. Now I am putting some foam tape on the back of this pearlescent cardstock because I figured why not pop this up, add a little bit extra interest to it. And so I popped that up with some foam tape, and now I'm just gluing my lilac cardstock down, and I'm just like saying love you, because I do. I love everyone that watches my films, my videos. Wouldn't that be interesting to do it in film? So anyhow, we get that all glued down. And that's going to be it for card number 2. Now for card number 3, if you can see me bring it up here, I took the embossing folder and I cut out that heart. And as you can see, you don't really need it, but you don't need to cut out the heart. And I took some more pearlescent cardstock from my stash, and I'm going to be using that. Now I get a little cheeky here, and I just said, hey, thumbs up, because I would love a thumbs up if you're enjoying my video, or if you just like hate watch me, a thumbs up would help too. You'd allow more people to hate watch me. So anyhow, I'm gluing that down, and I am gluing on top of it the embossed rose gold cardstock. Now this rose gold, it's really a real pretty rose gold. Too often I find with rose gold, it almost looks copper, but this one is a true rose gold. So I pop up the heart in the center that we cut out. So it's just adding a lot of visual interest. Now I'm taking a strip of the pearlescent cardstock, and I have got some rose gold embossing powder from Simon Says Stamps that I'm going to use. And we're going to stamp out You Are My Sunshine. Now this rose gold embossing powder, it's really on the red side. I don't know that I would call it rose gold, but because it is rose gold, I decided I'm going to use it anyway. Rose gold with rose gold. Why not? I don't get a whole lot of opportunity to use this embossing powder. And I can't remember. I think it probably came with another one of the kits. I just don't ask me which one. I don't remember that far back. but it does end up looking really nice on this card. Now this is the first time that I am taking the dies that I bought with this kit, and I'm going to be cutting out the sentiment, and we're going to just pop that up as well once we get it all heated up and melted. And it's a really, I can't emphasize enough how pretty these sentiments are. They're all scripty and curling, and they're just all beautiful, which is another reason I bought the dies for it, because I'm hoping to get a lot of use. And my fussy cutting is awful. I try, but it just does not turn out well at all. But these dies were really easy to line up, and they really, I think, added a whole lot. So you just see I'm going to be adding that sentiment to the lower right hand corner, and that's going to be it for card number 3. This is a pretty card. I think well, I don't know if it's my favorite. I like the way a lot of these cards turned out. So this card number 4, you can see where I cut that strip out, and now I wish I had done it a little differently, where I would have actually lined up the paper up more so it was exactly lined up where those center jars were. But I didn't take that in account, and I just kind of cut the jars thinking they would line up, and they line up 3 across instead of kind of staggered like the original paper shows. But, it's all good. We're going to make it work. And again, this is a simple card. And I've got the purple cardstock that came in the kit, the lilac, that we're using as the background frame for our pattern paper. I used pattern paper on 3 of these cards because the kit came with pattern paper. Let's try to make the pattern paper work for us. And here I am just stamping down the sentiment, thinking of you. And I am stamping that on some gray cardstock from Simon Says stamps that came with another kit, I believe. But I pulled it out of my stash. I don't recall the name of this gray, but it's definitely a Simon Says stamp gray. I think it might be fog gray or something along those lines. It's really pretty. And I stamped out the Thinking of You sentiment in white embossing powder. Now, I originally tried using white ink with clear embossing powder, but on this paper it turned gray. You might have seen that in the bottom. You might have to go back and look, but if you notice, there were 2 Thinking of You sentiments on the gray cardstock, and one of them was white embossing powder and one of them was clear on white ink. So anyhow, this is the white embossing powder with the clear ink, and we just cut it out, and we're going to glue that right in the center, upper center there of our card. And I'm looking at that, and I decided it needed something else. And this is when I bring in splatter. I decide that I'm going to just use the box the card kit came in, and I am going to use some white gouache with a little water, and I'm going to splatter this all over. And I'm not sure what I thought about that, but it was a little too late to undo it. So, we just went with it because that's what we do. At least on this channel. I could have just edited this all out and pretend that I never made card number 4, but I did. So that was it. So for card number 5, I embossed the pattern paper. It's kind of hard to see. And I took some maroonish paper from my stash. And I also took some acetate. And we are going to stamp on the acetate the sentiment thank you. And we're going to do some florals. Now, this is the second time I'm embossing this, which is why you see me moving those stamps, because I had already used a sheet of acetate and embossed them once before, but I did not have enough anti-static powder on them. And so I got excess powder on it, and I had some embossing powder I didn't see on my glass mat, and that got on the back as well. And so the first sheet that I embossed was a total mess. It had embossing grains all over the place, and I did end up redoing it. I usually try to make things work, but it was just not salvageable. So this was me redoing it, and this time it worked pretty well. This is some Judikins acetate, which is embossable, but it still will warp if you're not careful. You got to be careful to move that heat gun all around. It's kind of a pain in the butt embossing acetate, but when it works out, it looks pretty good. So we've got that beautiful thank you that we're embossing in the silver. And I love the way this acetate sheet just, it looks beautiful. I don't know if you think so, but I like it anyhow, which is a good thing that I do, considering it's like my card. Now I'm just wiping it off, and we are putting our frame. We have a little rectangle frame in some leftover pearlescent paper that I had. And I am gluing down my pattern paper. Again, I think the embossing of using the embossing folder for this pattern paper, it's not real noticeable, but it does add a little bit of extra interest to the card. So I'm just gonna glue that down, and I probably when I glue down the maroon or burgundy or whatever color that is, kind of a purplish color, when I glue that down, I probably should have used some double-sided adhesive, you know, or a tape, ATG, or a dot tape, anything. It didn't sit really good. Here's my attempt of art. Attempted art. That's a kitty. That's pretty bad. But I had fun. I had fun drawing it for you. So see how it didn't want to stick? The glue was just not being real cooperative. But we did get it eventually to bind. I just had to keep kind of pushing it down. And now here I am putting glue around the edge of the frame. And I was originally going to pop this up. I was never going to do a shaker out of it, which you could. But I forgot that I was going to pop it up, and I just glued it down. So it still, I think, looks pretty good. There's plenty of dimension on this card. And that's it for card 5. You see me kind of putting my block on it to try to get it to stay down there. And now here are our cards. That's the one with our hidden sympathy note. Your thank you for everything. So anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. If you would love to do me a huge favor, I'd love to have you. Anyhow, that's it. Bye-bye for now.